Welcome to the Personal Trainer Hustle. Personal Trainer Hustle. If you didn't know, you do now.
All right, welcome back. Personal Trainer Hustle. Your host, Sam Lopez here. And today we are doing a Q&A. So that is you sent in a question. One of you guys sent in a question, and I am now going to answer that question for you. So if you guys have a question you want to send in, the link is in the episode. It's going to take you to personaltrainerhustle.com, and you can send in your question if you want to have your question be answered on one of the upcoming episodes here. So that's what's going on today. Today we're answering one of those questions. So today's question was sent in by Will McKenzie. So shout out Will. Will's question is, my wife and I are former D1 athletes, but no experience in personal training, other than our own lifts. We have a 600 square foot metal building in the backyard, have talked about getting equipment to train athletes. What steps would you recommend in starting a sports performance training facility? Okay, so obviously my gym is not sports performance. So I don't have experience specifically running a gym or a facility that does that. But I'm going to do my best to give you some advice that, just things that I've seen, things that maybe I've done with my business. But more than anything, I'm going to talk about a lot of, experiences that I've had with other athletes, D1 athletes that have been like coworkers of mine. So this is actually something I've witnessed a lot because a lot of athletes, once they're done with college sports or even, some people out of high school, but, they've played sports and some people don't play professionally, some people do, but somewhere along the line, a lot of times athletes make that transition to coaching, right? It seems very obvious. It seems a very obvious transition. So I've witnessed a lot of, athletes in my career. I've made a lot of friends that are trainers who played college football or basketball or things like that. So that's kind of where I'm going to come at it this episode from. So the question here is, you're an athlete, but you haven't been a trainer. You have space, so you're looking to start a facility, which sounds pretty awesome and a great opportunity to do something with that, So that's pretty exciting. But today, I'm just going to jump right into 7 points, right? So I wrote down 7 points I want to make that are just things to think about, pieces of advice. Some of them are a little bit deeper than others. Some of them are a little bit more obvious, but I still think that it would be very important to cover all of these things in your first steps as you begin to think about doing this, okay? So that's where I'm coming from with today's episode, is understanding that you're thinking about doing this, right? You haven't committed to it, so that's where I'm coming from with today's episode. So the first thing, point number 1 that I wanted to jump into was, number 1 is I would suggest that you go and get certified to be a personal trainer, okay? And why do I say that? Because a lot of people, again, that's why I'm speaking from experience, a lot of coaches are becoming coaches because they are very good at working out. They are very good at being disciplined, at putting workout programs together, ton of experience, being in the trenches and understanding what it takes to have that type of body, that type of mindset, that type of discipline, So even though you've lived it, there is a big difference. I'm telling you this because I've noticed it. I have hired very athletic and sometimes even former athletes to work for me. And a lot of the times, it's not all the time. I'm just going to say it's like a 50-50 shot. But a lot of the times, just because you know how to exercise doesn't mean you understand how to work with other people. And it's not just athletes. It's something that happens to most fitness goers, gym goers, a lot of you guys listening right now that became personal trainers because you love working out or because you got really fit, this is one of those things that every trainer has to eventually figure out and take very seriously. So this is something I haven't talked about before, but I think this is a great opportunity to talk about the importance of understanding the difference between being a fitness enthusiast or being very fit yourself and the difference of actually being able to coach somebody else, right? Coaching somebody else is its own skill, right? And a lot of people don't bridge that gap. A lot of people think that being a trainer is just getting other people to do what worked for them. That is a lot of personal trainers out there. A lot of coaches just put plans together that are a bunch of exercises, but it's not really training, right? Training, there's a level of education, there's a level of understanding, there's a level of making regressions, there's a level of making adjustments, right? There's a level of understanding the individual that you work with, right? What gets them going? What doesn't get them going? What motivates them? What doesn't motivate them? What moves are they good at? What moves are they lacking, right? Maybe you have an athlete, you need to be able to understand maybe that their glutes aren't firing off the way that they should, right? Maybe the hamstrings are too tight. Maybe the problem's coming from the calf. Maybe the problem is coming from the shoes that they're wearing, right? That is the difference between just saying, hey, give me 20 push-ups, 10 burpees, run a mile, do this, come back, battle ropes, 30 seconds, right? You get into a rhythm where exercise looks good, it's explosive, it's fast, high knees, right? We're doing all this athletic stuff. But the reality is a coach sees the person that they're working with and tries to understand the mechanics of that individual, right? Like, I don't know, but all of you guys are different heights, different builds, different widths, different experiences, right? So if you're like a 6'3" person training a 5'2" person, that 5'2" person probably moves completely differently than you do. And the weights that you put on an individual feel different on their body than they feel on your body because you're different people. So getting certified is your first step in beginning that journey of being an actual coach, right? Versus being an exercise instructor or a hype man or hype woman, right? Because again, I want to make sure that there's distinctions here for everybody listening, right? Just because you're a hype man or a hype woman does not mean you're a coach. And just because you're able to pick exercises for somebody to do that are really difficult to do or make them break a sweat or whatever, that's still not coaching. You might still not be teaching that person something. You might still not be instructing that person. You might still not be understanding where that person's coming from and where they want to go, right? So getting certified is going to teach you things that a lot of the times, and especially people that are already fit or already have a lot of experience, those are the people that are at highest risk of having this mindset, right? Because you look good, because you've exercised, you think you've got it. And I'm telling you this because I'm actually thinking of someone that I worked with over a decade ago. The guy looked good. The guy exercised really well. He had some clients. But I remember there was one time where we were talking about an exercise, and he was like, well, that's for the lats. And myself and the other coaches looked at each other, and we said, what? And he said, yeah, when I do that, that's for the lats. And the coaches and I were like, bro, that exercise is not for the lats. What are you talking about? And it was just, I'm just sharing with you guys possible moments that could happen in your career. You don't want to be the coach that thought they had it figured out, only to find out that you don't actually know the muscles. You don't understand what the muscles do, right? You don't understand the joints. You don't understand the difference between doing 5 reps, 8 reps, 12 reps, doing 3 sets, 4 sets, 5 sets, right? Resting 60 seconds, resting 90 seconds, resting, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, right? Understanding the different planes, right? Are you moving in a sagittal plane? Are you moving in a transverse plane, right? Understanding recovery, right? And how to train for recovery versus how to train for power versus how to train for control versus how to train for mobility, right? Like, so I don't want to make it sound more complicated than it is because it's at the end of the day, it's all just exercise. But I just want to make sure that we start where everyone should start, which is like the educational part. Now, what certification you get is not, to me, the most important. Obviously, NASM, ACSM, those are some of the more popular, more, well-known, like status type of certifications. But at the end of the day, even if you get certified, it's really, at the end of the day, your dedication to your craft, right? So it's really because all trainers are not good. Like, all good trainers aren't good because of their certification. They're good because their certification taught them how to think and set them up with the fundamental tools and the fundamental knowledge, so that then the trainer could go on and read other books on strength training, read other books on flexibility, read other books on myofascia, right? Read other books on breathing. So the certification is going to set you up with the basic information that you need, so that when you go and get other books, when you watch other videos, when you listen to people talk about fitness, when you sign up for other courses, it's all going to make sense. You can build on top of it. So I'm not somebody who believes that the certification is everything, because it isn't. There's a lot of people that I've also met people that are not certified and are great coaches, right? But I don't suggest that, because you want to make sure you have all your ducks in a row. And being a certified trainer is one of those things that you put in line. But again, I want to make sure that I emphasize this. Getting certified is not going to teach you everything, but I guarantee you it's going to teach you some things that you didn't even realize you should know, right? So you don't want to skip over that just because you're an athlete, just because you're fit, just because you know what you're doing. You might miss critical points in teaching others how to exercise, and also being able to speak on the matter once you actually start to like brand your business. That's another big thing that happens when we're not educating ourselves in fitness, is that people can tell when you speak, right? So one of the things I notice about a lot of like fitness influencers and people like that is that, and I want you guys to really notice this, because maybe you do this, or other people that you follow do this, they usually never talk about what they're doing. They just show you the 3 exercises that they did. They show you the routine. They show you the leg raises. They show you somebody throwing the ball and the person catches it and twists and throws it back, right? They show you the move, but they wouldn't be able to explain to you the move. You see how the way I see it is different than what most people see, right? Most people scrolling, they go, "Oh, that's a cool workout." What I notice is, I don't think you'd be able to explain why this is important, or why you chose to do this, or how this is different than doing the other version, right? So as you build a brand, one of the most powerful things you guys can do is be able to speak on the brand, speak on what you're doing, speak on why it's important. Because if you can't speak on it, then people think then whatever you have them doing, they could just look it up online. Whatever you have them doing, they can just look up a YouTube or print out a workout, or work out with their friend at the park, right? They're not going to notice the difference, because on the surface, exercise looks like exercise. But when you study it, you'll be able to speak about it differently, okay? So just something to think about. I actually made a note here, because there are so many people follow online, but these are just 2 pages on Instagram that I love. I love these guys' training style, the way they communicate their videos and their thought processes. So if you guys want to follow these people, one is at Daru Strong. So this coach's name, he trains a lot of athletes, a lot of MMA fighters. I think he was a fighter at some point himself. Daru Strong, Phil Daru. So it's DARUSTRONG, right? Daru Strong. So I always love the stuff he's doing. He's always doing a little bit of an explanation, which makes it really fun. But you can look at that. That's an athletic trainer right there. So you can kind of start studying them. Another page I like is called realgame.athletics. And the guy's name is Alexander Whitehair. But it's Real Game, one word, realgame.athletics. And the guy's name is Alexander Whitehair. That's another fun page. If you are into the athletic side of training, you'll get some ideas from them too. Just the way that they make videos, the way that they kind of show the different variations of stuff, I think you can get something there. So I just want to make sure you get that. Now, again, I'm still on my first point of getting certified. What I wanted to say is you are going to find yourself in kind of a not a difficult situation, but there is something great about your situation, and there's something that's a little bit of a concern that I have in your situation. The fact that you have the space to start and you still haven't done any personal training, right? You still haven't coached people, but you have a ton of experience in fitness and athletics. It's good and bad. I mean, it's really exciting because you have the space to do it. My concern is, when are you going to get your experience, right? Like, it's going to be, you're just going to have to jump in and open up this facility in your backyard, in your 600 square foot facility, which is super, super exciting. And I'm really like kind of pumped about that idea. It's really cool. My only concern is that you're going to be training without ever having experience, without ever having a mentor. I mean, hopefully some of your coaches, you see them as mentors, but that's it's like a double-edged sword. On one side, it's an amazing opportunity. On the other side, I'm concerned about the experience that you need to still gain, not only go through the certification process, but also begin to have experience to weed out your concepts, right? Like, figure out what your style is, figure out what type of customers gravitate to you, figure out what's good and bad about your style, figure out what equipment you actually need. So it's just kind of a weird space to be, but I just want to throw it out there for you to just consider, just think about it. If you can start off by maybe getting some one-on-one clients, let's just say, before you jump into the athletic training, maybe that's something to consider. Maybe you go and you just, you get your local, person from a grocery store. You get, some young kids maybe for free in high school, or maybe you start something not free because you don't want to give away your time, but maybe you start with some like high school athletes and you can kind of get some experience there. And, I don't know. I'm just thinking about the experience part. That's the only thing that I'm kind of worried about. Even though, as I say it, I realize, well, I'm talking to an athlete, like a very high caliber athlete, both of you. So, that would be one of those things where I'm just kind of stuck because I haven't seen you train, right? You might actually already know exactly what you're going to do, and what I'm saying is just bullshit, like that's also possible. But since I can't see it, I'm just going to throw that out there. If you don't want to concern yourself with getting that experience, go for it. But, that's, again, like I said, it's just one of those things I'm a little concerned about, is getting that experience of being a coach and putting a program together, which is going to be one of my points here moving forward. Number two is just logistical stuff that I would be concerned with. One of the things I definitely would say you need to put together is make sure that you have some insurance if you are going to start, especially if you're training with athletes and things like that. More likely than not, you're doing explosive things. You are, again, also not experienced coaching other people yet. So I would say just number two, let's make sure that we are looking for some personal trainer insurance. And with that, also make sure you have waivers in place. And we're going to get into like the age groups in a little bit. But again, this isn't hard to find. You can go and look for templates online and just make them your own. Fill in your name of either yourself or your company if you've put one together. And obviously, if the company, this is a good, important point to make, right? If your company name isn't legitimate yet, because a lot of trainers start with a company name, but it's not registered in your state or in your county or in your city, right? If you're doing that, then really you're doing business as yourself. So that's a good distinction to make. Unless you have paperwork that says that you have registered your business, make sure that your paperwork is like holding you free of the liability as a person, not as an entity, right? Or you can do both. You can say name of my company, also known as, and then use your name, right? Because this is why there is LLCs and corporations and things like that, right? Sole proprietorships. A sole proprietorship means that you are the business, right? You are doing the work. So you're doing the training, and you're representing yourself. And if something happens, you are responsible. The other common thing that people do is they get an LLC. What that does is it makes the company separate from you. So the company can be sued, but not necessarily you. And so what happens is, let's say you needed to pay something off and they're looking for a way to do it. They can't get to your assets, right? So they can't get to your cars. They can't get to your house because those things don't belong to the company. So they belong to you, not the company. And so there's a level of like distancing yourself there from any issue that may come up. So that's actually one of the big reasons why companies have these different, legal statuses, different filing statuses. It just depends on, where you're at in your career. There's also tax breaks and things like that, and paying yourself. It can get complicated as things go, but that's why businesses usually start small and grow, and business people usually start small and then become more knowledgeable, more experienced business people. That's usually how it goes. You just you get there. You slowly get there. You figure it out over time. But right now, if you are doing the training, then just make sure you realize that whether you file it or not, because this is a sole proprietorship, you're functioning under a sole proprietorship, whether you register it or not. Okay, so let's say you start a company and right now you're just trying it out, right? You're like, well, I don't want to invest in getting a name and filing it with the state. I'm just trying to get a client to get some experience. Okay, then just make sure that even if you use a company name to like brand yourself, right? You have t-shirts with a company name or a logo or whatever on your paperwork. Just make sure that you are protecting yourself as a person, because there is no real company. You know what I mean? So just make sure that when they sign, they're signing something that has your name where it's protecting you. So the waiver, that's all I'm saying, is just make sure that you have a waiver. And then also contracts and things like that. One thing that I try to make sure I do is when somebody comes and visits the gym for the first time, they sign a waiver, right? That means that they're not purchasing anything, but they're still signing a liability waiver where, they're not holding responsible, that they are participating in this willingly. But also, if they do sign up, just to cover my ass a little bit more, there's also a liability waiver clause in the contract. So once they pay for sessions and it says, I'm purchasing these many sessions, these are going to be my payments, I understand this, I understand that, cancellation policy, and I also throw a waiver in there as well, just to make sure that we are doubling down on that. It's just one of those things. But number two, I just wanted to make sure that we are talking about just the basic legal stuff. You want to start putting that into place, especially if people are coming over to your home. Even setting up some cameras or something like that would be a good idea to protect yourself, right? Because we don't want anybody claiming anything that didn't happened when they were, going there, or saying they went inside or whatever. Things get weird. So as a business person, you always have to think like that. You have to have everything that you can in place to protect yourself, especially when you're starting off. Because the last thing you want to do is be dealing with some bull when all you're trying to do is get this project off the ground, right? Again, also very important to have everything in order. If you are working with younger athletes, that they have to get parental consent to participate. Let's say you're getting high school students and getting them to prepare to play college sports, then you have to also be mindful of that. I know a lot of people train without a certification, and a lot of people train without insurance and paperwork. And most of the time, nothing happens. That's just life. In life, most of the time, things go well. But every once in a while, things don't go too well, and it can be frustrating. I've had situations where people, they purchase, let's say, 24 sessions, which is a plan we've had. And when they come in, they say, oh, I thought I got 30. And we have to pull out the contract and say, no, it says right here that you understood it was 24 sessions that you were purchasing, not 30, right? Those are the little moments where you realize, if I don't have proof of what's going on, how do I debate this person? How can I prove that they really did just pay for 24? And you might be stuck in a legal battle where you're going to have to either refund them the money or give them the 30 sessions when they really only paid for 24. So sometimes that happens, right? So it's just very important. I know I'm just kind of harping on this point, but it's very important to make sure that that you're just kind of thinking about your business like a real business, even as you start putting it together from your home, because it is a legitimate thing you're starting. Just because you're starting in the back doesn't mean it can't be a big, important brand. And sometimes what we do is we see it. I'm going to tell you this because it happens to me all the time. When it's our own project, sometimes it's hard to see it and take it seriously, right? Like, when I look at my studio and I see that it is a local gym, it is a local business. People call, people email, people come in, come out, they sign up, right? Even when I'm not there, the gym is moving along. It's hard for me to really see it that way because I built it, and I'm just me. And so it's hard in the beginning sometimes to take yourself seriously. It happens to me with this podcast too. When you guys send in questions, when I talk to you guys and we do a listener Q&A where we're actually talking via Zoom, when I see the listenership keep growing, it's weird. It's hard for me to take it seriously because I'm the one doing it. So I'm just saying, be careful with that. Just because you're starting it out of your back house and out of home, and just because you're new or whatever, you want to still do business in a business way. Right? That's going to save you a lot of headache in the long run. So we're going to go on to number 3. Now we're talking about your actual program. Now we're actually going to get into like what you're putting together. So number 3, something that I want you to really think about as you become a coach, as you start an athletic training program, is what is the program itself? Okay, I want you to, as you begin moving into this, the question that I would ask, and again, this is just like to optimize for more success in the future, is think about what the program actually is, okay? Like, what is step 1, phase 1, right? Is it Mondays we do balance, Tuesdays we do speed, Wednesdays we do power, right? So like, something that's going to be helpful as you begin to put this together is, let's say right now you're not in a place where you feel like you can commit to opening it up or getting the equipment. Something you can start to develop right now is what this program is actually going to be, right? What is it? Because athletic training is just athletic training. Personal training is just personal training. Fitness coaching is just fitness coaching, right? So one thing that I'm a big believer in is that you don't want to leave your business up for interpretation for other people, right? You don't want people to not know what the difference is when they come and do your program versus if they were just doing a boot camp at the park, right? So one of the things that you can do is actually start to work it out. It's not going to be perfect. It's going to be ever evolving. But having some structure to your program, having some thought behind it is really going to make you think and start to put together what your program's all about, right? How do you structure it? How do you keep control of it? And how do you guarantee that people are progressing, right? So a lot of us, when we get into personal training, this is where I think the athletic stuff is a little bit different than personal training is, a lot of us, when we get into personal training, we just think that we are just going to tell people exercises to do. But the problem with only being someone who comes up with exercises and doesn't actually think about why they're picking the exercises is that people can't see the value in it, right? Because they start to realize the mountain climbers I did with you one-on-one are the same mountain climbers that I did on that YouTube video last night. The battle ropes that I did with you are the same battle ropes that I did at boot camp, right? The squats that I did are the same squats that my friend showed me at the gym. So what happens is people start to figure out, why am I paying for a one-on-one private personal training session when what I think is happening is just a generic exercise that I can get anywhere. Right now, people don't think about it that much, I don't think. But what happens is they realize, man, for the $80 that I'm paying for this, I might as well pay 20 on the weekend and do that. It's kind of the same thing. Sure, I'm in a group, but again, when there is no correction, when there is no strategy, when there is no direction, they don't see the difference, right? But if there was direction, if there was strategy, if there were regressions, if there were explanations, if there are different things that you're doing for them, now they're going to say, well, it's not the same because when I go to boot camp, I do squats, but when I do squats with my coach is measuring this and teaching me that and making sure that my form is this way and making sure that my shoulders are here, right? So again, there's differences. And so one thing that I would say, and hopefully you can start to develop this, is, begin to test your program. Test it on other people. Sure, maybe it worked for you. But what I would say is maybe figure out how to get, one person to work with you, a small group, maybe for free, maybe for a discount. Maybe you can use that as a way to begin your promotions for your program. Once you have your equipment in there, once you have maybe a banner in the back, once you clean it up, right, make it look good, you start a social media page, you start a YouTube, you start a Facebook or an Instagram. You don't have to have all of them, but just figure out what works for you and where you see it going and how it's going to funnel people back to you. But something you can start doing is, even if you put out an ad where you are giving away 4 weeks, 6 weeks of, performance training or whatever, what you can do is test your program against those people. And this is the most important thing, you're going to test it and you're going to record it, right? So in testing it, you're going to fine tune it. And in recording it, you're going to have some proof of concept that you can now use to promote for the next people that are actually going to pay full price. So you're going to use this test program because you put together a program, right? So my number 3 is actually, what is your plan? What is your program? But once you put it together, you can advertise it either for a discount or for free, or if you're good enough, maybe you can get paying customers from the very beginning, and record it, test it out, maybe get their testimonials, show their performance before and after, and now you're going to begin to build the proof of concept for other people to want to be part of it, right? But it all starts with having a plan to put it together. But that's number 3. I would say, hey, begin to test your program, begin to test your ideas, right? You think that you can make me faster by using these strategies. Well, show me on you, show me on your friend, show me on your neighbor, show me on your cousin, show me on whoever, show me how your plan, specifically your plan, came together in order to make that person faster, or that person stronger, or that person more powerful, or whatever, that person bigger in size, or be able to decelerate faster or in a shorter distance, or whatever it is that you're going to be working on with your athletes. You want to be able to demonstrate that. That's what people want to see, right? Because your customer wants to be more athletic. They want to either be faster, they want to be stronger, they want to be more agile, whatever it is. They want to prevent injury, whatever it is. Again, you want to begin to put some proof of concept forward for the next group of people that are actually going to believe and join this program, whatever this program is that you're putting together for athletes. Begin to test it. Like I said, it's also going to help you get that experience and figure out what your program's all about, what your philosophy's all about, which leads me to number 4. Point number 4 is think about your vision. I don't know if you have one already, but I think having a vision is very important, very powerful, because a vision is what keeps you going long term, right? So there's a difference between wanting to be a personal trainer and wanting to create something of importance, something that has impact. When you just want to be a coach and have some clients, it's a lot easier to get discouraged. It's a lot easier to quit because I guess personal training didn't work for me. And it's also harder to solve for X, solve for Y, right? I don't know what I'm solving for because I'm just trying to get clients. When you have a vision, now you're trying to actually put something into the world where you're answering a very simple question, which is, why does the world need this? Why does the community need this? Why does this individual need this? right? Who would benefit from this? Why is this important for this person, whatever that person is, right? So when you have vision for what you're doing, what it's going to start doing is it's going to start to fine tune also like the structure of your business, the colors of your business, the location of your business, the name of your business, the price of your business, the marketing of your business. All of it starts coming together because now you're actually solving a specific problem for a specific person in what we covered number 3, in a specific way, right? So now you figured out who I'm doing it for, why I'm doing it, and how I'm going to do the thing that I say I'm going to do. When you begin to put that together, now you have a business that has more of a chance, because it's not guaranteed, but it has more of a chance to grow over time. It has more of a chance to be taken seriously over time. It has the ability to, exponentially grow over time, right? So it's just a vision. It's also, again, like I was saying earlier about being able to like speak the lingo. When you think about the vision that you want to have for this project, that also is going to help in your ability to explain what you do, why you do it, who you do it for, how you fix the problems, what the benefits are, right? It's hard to explain all those things when all we think we do is exercise people, right? If all you do is think, I work people out and get them fitter, make them faster, you're not going to be able to connect to the heart of other people, right? But if you can answer the question, why does this matter? What is the one thing that I think that I'm doing that certain people need, right? Is it that they need it at this rate because it's unavailable to certain people? Or is it that, no, these other people need this type of quality training and it's going to be unique and it's going to be maybe more expensive, but I'm bringing that next level? I don't know, right? I don't know what that answer is. But something that I always say is like, sometimes this comes from something that happened to you. You know, if you had an experience that was good or bad, right? If you had a good experience, you can say, hey, I was fortunate enough to experience this, and I want to make sure other people don't miss out just like me. Or you can say, this happened to me and I just thought that it was wrong. So I want to make sure that I right that wrong for the next group of people. Right? So however you want to look at it, you can pull from good or from bad, but you can still either share good experiences or look to fix certain things in the world that you live in, whatever that world is, whatever that sport is, all of those things, right? It's just a way to think about it, but something that I would also, again, you asked me some advice, I don't know, some tips. I would say if you're trying to start a business, one of the things that are lacking for a lot of people is to have a strong enough vision, right? Something that you begin to believe that matters to someone, right? So I'm going to give you guys an example for like my gym when I finally came up with it, because when I started, I didn't think about this. When I started my gym, I was like, it's a personal training gym. But then I read that you needed to have a vision. You needed to have a unique selling proposition. I was like, shit. You know, I mean, I kind of had one built into the gym, but then I realized I had to lean into it, right? So like for me, my gym is called Logic, and my message is that most training out there is illogical. You have people that want to do weight loss, doing bodybuilding. You have bodybuilding, doing CrossFit. You have CrossFitters people doing burpees when really they should be doing shoulder stabilizing exercise. So what I noticed was there's a lot of dangerous training methods out there. And what I started to preach to our customers was my vision is to bring to my community training that makes sense, training that is not for show, training that is not for likes, training that is logical, that brings science to actual fitness, right? So that was my first iteration of it. Over time, now it's more about, again, I'm going to share this with you guys. Maybe you can be inspired by this, but like for me, my studio is for the people that can't just get up and go do a yoga class because they have a wrist limitation and they have tight hamstrings and they feel embarrassed to be in public. Like I look at the individual and I tell them, hey, where you don't fit in anywhere else, you fit in here. right? Hey, you're a mom, you're a dad, you feel like you can't just go and join CrossFit, right? You're 65, you feel like you're going to get hurt. That's fine. You don't have to do it like that. You can come here, right? So again, I'm just sharing with you guys a little bit of the messaging, right? And it's more detailed than that, and there's other elements to it, and it's not perfect all the time. But I'm getting you to realize that the studio moves forward because there's a direction, there's a vision, right? We know who it's for and who it's not for. And so that's one of those things you can examine for yourself is what is it that you want to bring to people that you can say, just like I just said in my little pitch, you can say like, hey, this was the issue. This is what I'm trying to fix. This is who it's for, right? So I'll leave you that, that homework there. In figuring out your vision, in figuring out what you want to do, point number 5 is simply, I just wanted to ask you to think about where your customers are, okay? This is just super simple marketing idea. Let's say you put the equipment in there, you begin, you have a brand, you're going to start marketing. Just something very simple that you can implement is just think about where your customers are, okay? Because for you, what you can implement is a social media strategy, sure. But really what I'm thinking is if you are getting athletes, then you know where they are. They're in the school, right? So it would almost be better instead of trying to get people to like your post and to follow and to, whatever, even though you should be doing that, you actually have a more direct connection to them because you can literally look up at a map and look at all the schools and go directly to the school and even maybe have some type of contract with schools or some type of affiliate program with schools. But worst case scenario, you can at least go there and maybe even pass out coupons or flyers or park a car with a banner or whatever it is, because you know where your customer is, right? You have a very specific customer. Now, again, that's a double-edged sword because in the beginning, it's going to feel harder to get going because you can't just get, Joe Schmo to come train with you if you are trying to specifically do athletic training. So, niches are good. I'm glad that you have it because it allows you to find your people faster. It allows you to pinpoint who you're looking for a lot more than just the general population because the general population can be anywhere. But athletes tend to be in one place, right? So it's usually a lot easier. But where are your customers? And I was asking that because point number 6, I was going to ask is who's paying for it, right? So here's another thing to think about when you're working with athletes. Usually athletes are young. Usually athletes are not working yet. Not all the time. That's why I said who is your customer, because I don't know if you're thinking about training 16, 17, 18-year-olds, 18, 19, 20-year-olds, 21-year-olds. The difficulty there, and I don't know anything about this world, right? So maybe the answer is obvious. But I just wanted to make sure that I posed the question, who's paying for this? Because when I was 21, I didn't have money for a coach. When I was 23, I didn't have money for a coach. When I was 17, my parents had to, So I'm just saying, think about that. Who are you targeting? Are you going to have different schedules for different people, right? You're going to have your high school athletes, your college athletes, your, post-college athlete, whatever. Like like I said, I don't know that world, but it's important to think about that because sometimes we don't realize it until we've put together a business. We paid for the equipment, we got the paint, we paid for the insurance, we paid for the LLCs, right? Which in California, it's $800 to have a business. Every year you pay it just to keep it registered. Different states have different amounts. Ours is one of the highest, but some states are like $200 a year, $300 a year, whatever. But let's say you go and do all of that just to find out that you didn't even think about who was going to pay it and who could afford it and what your price point was going to be. So again, before you start, hopefully this question gets you thinking, I wanted to train these people, because if you're training younger people, that's okay. But now you realize that you're not marketing just to them, you're marketing to the parents, right? It's kind of like toy manufacturers, right? Like they get the kid to annoy the parent so that the parent buys the toy, right? But they're not making commercials for the parents, even though the parents are buying it. So it's not a perfect example, but I'm just saying you got to think about who is going to pay for it, right? Like kids don't buy toys. The parents buy toys. The kids just ask them for it. So in a way, you have to kind of get the youth excited enough to join, but also understand that you're doing business with the parent, not the student, which is actually a really great business model for a lot of people because people spend more on their kids than they do on themselves, usually, from like studies that I've read and podcasts that I've heard and things like that. Usually it's common knowledge to say parents will spend more money on their kids. So if you can get to the parents and inspire the parents and get the kids excited, then you can get the money that way that you wouldn't get from the kids. If you're going more college level, then you might have to think about it differently, So at that point, you have to realize, like, okay, I'm going to do math now. Do I want to do one-on-ones? Do I want to do groups of 4? Do I need to do groups of 10? What if you want a group of 10, but you only get 5 people? Is that enough money? So it's just a numbers thing. But again, I'm just trying to like get you to think about it ahead of time. Who's paying for this? Just a question that popped in my head. And then number 7, my last point. I just wanted to make sure I said this because a lot of people struggle with this. It's okay to start small. I personally feel like I started bigger than I needed to. My first location with my gym had extra space. I was a new business owner. I didn't need all that overhead. I didn't need all that space in the beginning. I was happy to get one person my first month to come and join my program. And so what I notice is a lot of people, when they're thinking about starting their gym, because it happened to me, I was so excited. I was imagining we're going to have 3 trainers. So we're going to split the room into 3 different areas, and we're going to put a squat rack here and a squat rack here so that everybody fits. And I was dreaming so big and imagining so many things, only to realize that once the gym opened, I was staring at an empty gym. And so whatever, I made it work. I rose to the occasion. It's all good. I hired a good person in Sean who helped me a lot in the beginning. But when I look back, I always think you just needed enough space to get it going. Because if, like, for example, in your space, right, you have 600 square feet. I don't know how many like people you're actually going to be able to fit in there for athletics and the space that you need if you're going to be pushing sleds and things like that. I don't know the configuration. But I always say it's okay if you need to move to a bigger location. That's a great thing, right? So, but it's better to start with what you can do, fill it to the max, prove your concept, prove your marketing, prove people want this, prove it to yourself, prove it to the world. And then, of course, there's no problem. You can expand, right? But I'm just saying because a lot of people feel like they have to start in this giant big corporate setting. There's no rules. There's a lot of people that are successful training out of their garages, out of the back houses, in home, out of their cars, at the park, so you just have to be real with what your product is and what the competition is offering. Obviously, you have to think, okay, is there another athletic training facility nearby that gives them more value for less money? If that's the case, you're going to have a hard time because you're trying to charge more, unless you flip it and you say, hey, you're going to get more privacy, more one-on-one attention because of the way that it's set up. So you can use anything to your advantage or disadvantage. But again, I just wanted to make sure that I share the message with you and with anybody that it's okay to start small, and sometimes it's even beneficial to start small. It's very rare, even though it does happen. It's happened to me a couple times, but sometimes we're not ready for growth, right? So that could happen, right? You start your facility and you have 10 people sign up every week and you're like, damn, we don't fit and now I have a problem. That can happen, but for most of us, the opposite is going to happen. We're going to have a facility open and then you get 1 person, then you get 2 people, then you get 3, and over time you start to get referrals, you start to get better marketing, people start finding out about it. And then 6 months later, a year later, then it's full. And then when that happens, now hopefully you have clients to sustain the new overhead, you have money saved up to buy equipment and get the lease, right? So like for me, I just feel like it makes more sense to start small and then keep growing and moving your people forward. It's a long-term thinking thing though. A lot of people, what happens is once they get 10 clients, 15 clients, they don't want to reinvest the money into moving into a location or upgrading their equipment or things like that, right? So again, that's why it goes back to vision. How far do you want to take this, And there's many ways to configure it, like for me, we have a small space. So what we do is instead of getting a bigger location, part of the strategy right now is simply to make it worth more, right? So now it's more of like a club that only a few people can belong to. That way we don't have to get a huge space. We just have high quality clients that want that privacy, that want that one-on-one. So there's many ways to do business. You don't have to start here and then get a bigger location. What you could do is start there and then just raise your rates, right? So you could do it like that. Or you can keep this one and start another project. I mean, again, start where you're at and let business speak to you and guide you to where you need to go next. Because right now it's just an idea. So you might as well start putting it together and consider all the things that I talked about today. And hopefully in the future, you got a legit business going out of your house. I mean, one of the biggest benefits, obviously, is that you don't have the extra overhead. I think that's why a lot of people love the idea of starting out of their home. And if you have that possibility, more power to you. Again, everything's pros and cons. You also have people coming to your house. So, you got to think about that too, long term. Do you want to have 50 people every day coming in and out of your place? Also, here, oh man, okay, so this wasn't in my notes, but this is very important to think about. At what point, I don't know if you have neighbors or not, but at what point do your neighbors not like the idea of this happening? Okay, so this is something that a lot of people working out of their house don't consider. It is not your right to run a business out of your house. For most places, if you haven't gone through the proper legal process, it is not technically a legal thing to be doing, right? You have to get permits for that, which I would suggest if you want to legitimize it, you do go and get your city permits. That's something that I should have talked about earlier. But really the right way to do it is you have to get a business name, file it with the city, file it with the state, and then go to the city hall and tell them that you're going to do business out of this location. That's the way we should be doing it. That's the legal way. A lot of trainers just start out of their home because they don't want to go through that. And I'm just warning you guys, what happens with that is eventually if somebody notices, somebody gets tired of it, they're going to call the city to come check in and make sure that your paperwork is all set. I knew of a trainer that did this. He started a gym out of his garage, I guess, under his apartment. And then he started feuding with his neighbors, not understanding that, hey, buddy, you're not even supposed to be doing this to begin with. You don't have the moral authority to be able to stand up and say, hey, F you guys, you're the one that has an illegal setup in your home. So you have to think about those things. At some point, you have to either legitimize the business out of your home, which depending on where you live may be easier. It may not. I don't know. That's why every city, there's rules that apply to states, but there's also rules that apply to cities and counties, right? So different counties, when you go to City Hall, you can just ask, right? If you ever get curious, let's say you're still just thinking about it, you want to get curious, you can go ask without even giving them your address or anything like that. You can go and you can say, hey, what are the regulations or what are the things that you look at, or is it even allowed to have a business out of my garage? And you can get information specifically to your county, to your area, because everybody's different. Like where my business is, there's one rule that gyms have to really be mindful of, and it's a parking rule. And a lot of people don't know this. I saw a documentary once with somebody that started a gym and they didn't even think about parking, and then they shut down their gym for like a year until they figured out how to like resolve that issue. You don't want that to happen to you, right? So when you go into business, whether it's out of your home, out of your backyard, out of your front yard, in an office, in a front standing location, in a plaza, out of your car, whatever business you're running, whatever business, usually there are some rules around it. Now, they're not all crazy all the time. Sometimes they're very simple. Sometimes they're just, maybe they don't exist, but you have to find out. But one that is true to our gyms here in my city is that for every 100 square feet, you need one parking space available. Right? So if you have 300 square feet, you need 3 parking. 5, you need 5, right? 1,000, you need 10. So a lot of people don't know that. They don't think about that. And so what happens is they go and they find a location, they sign the lease, they put their gym equipment in there. But it turns out you have a 1,000 square foot facility with 2 parking spots. The city is going to say, you can't do that. We need people to be able to park. You may be able to fight it and say, hey, well, there's plenty of parking on the street, whatever. But a lot of places don't do that. They don't deal with that. They don't want to hear that. They're not going to listen to that. They're going to say the rule is if you have a fitness facility, you need X amount of parking spots for every X amount of space that you have. That is the rule. And if you cannot follow the rule, you cannot do business. And you may have already signed a lease. You may have already purchased equipment. And they're going to say, shut it down. And the police and everybody, they'll come and they will shut it down for you. And they'll check up on you until you get it right. So again, there's little legalities. I'm not going to say that it's something to concern yourself with in the beginning right now. But if you're thinking about growing, you definitely should consider that you can't have 20 people in your yard, running up and down without other people noticing, right? So again, right now I'm done with my points. It's just something that came to my mind as I'm giving you some real talk here. Sometimes we don't consider that, right? Sometimes people don't consider the music. I remember getting upset with some of my trainers years ago because they would turn the music up, and I said, we're not the only ones in this plaza, you guys. What are you doing? You think that we just get to do whatever we want? We're sharing walls with other people. And so if you have a business out of your home, you guys, we're sharing space. We're sharing the street. So it's just things to consider later. But something you can think about now. But I mean, right now, that's why I was saying it's great to start small. It's great that you have this opportunity out of your home because, it allows you to start trying business. It allows you to start marketing something. It allows you to start moving forward, start making some money. It allows you to start doing things without the big, the roadblock that a lot of us have, or the mental block, which is like, oh man, I have to sign a 5-year lease somewhere. Right? And I have to take on a $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 investment every month just to start, plus equipment, plus taxes, plus this. So a lot of us, it's hard for us to start with something like that. We don't have the opportunity, and it holds us back, right? Making that commitment, like who wouldn't want to have their own gym, right? But making the commitment that you're going to get this lease and you're going to pay for rent, you're going to pay for lights, you're going to pay electricity, you're going to pay internet, you're going to buy the equipment, you're going to upkeep the equipment, you're going to pay your licenses, you're going to pay, your permits. That holds a lot of us back, right? So again, I'm just saying that to say if you start small, you allow yourself to begin, but I'm just kind of letting you know long term, once you get a few clients, you got to think about what you're going to do at that point. Maybe nothing, I don't know. Depends on where you live. Maybe you live somewhere where it doesn't even matter, more power to you. But again, my message is also just to everyone listening all the time, something to think about when you are thinking about your, starting your gym, starting your location, whatever. So I'll leave it at that. You guys, thanks for listening. Like I said a few episodes ago, we got a few Q&A episodes kind of backed up here, so I'm getting into them. If you guys notice, we're gonna have a few Q&As all in one in a couple of weeks, but that's just because I hadn't gotten to them. But I appreciate you guys sending these questions in. Make sure you guys send a question in, just like today. We'll turn it into an episode. There's always something we can pick up from one of these episodes. So don't be shy. Don't be afraid. Send in your question. Send it into personaltrainerhustle.com. It's on the episode. It's linked to the episode, so you can just click on it, go there, and throw a question my way. All right? I appreciate you guys. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.